Here we go. When you're good at something, you'll tell everyone. Never mind. Hopefully it's not too loud, okay? Just tell me if it's too loud. Oh my God. When the NBA is good, it's real good, by the way. I have not followed the NBA for many, many, many years. I haven't really found any team or any player that really captures my attention. The definitive GOAT
Jordan
analysis.
versus LeBron.
Oh.
LeBron versus Jordan. It's a debate that has captured the public's attention for the last several years, especially after this moment in 2016, when LeBron James beat the Golden State Warriors to win the third championship of his career.
So, like I said, this is from 4 years ago, so it's 2020. So at this point, LeBron is playing in the Lakers. He won an extra championship above the stats that are told in this one, I think. One more championship. Doesn't really matter. We'll continue.
In LeBron's own words,
that one right there made me the greatest player of all time. That's what I felt. Reasons. I was like, that one right there made you the greatest player of all time.
But did it? Is everything since that moment simply icing on LeBron's cake? Or is LeBron destined to finish his career in Michael Jordan's shadow? We've all heard the argument.
Yeah. He put that Space Jam. I'm pretty sure it was before LeBron did his Space Jam. My kids loved that movie. I didn't watch it. The original Space Jam was not great. Let's be honest.
Arguments from LeBron supporters.
He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's more durable.
And from Jordan supporters.
Michael Jordan was merely 6-0 with 6 MVPs in the finals.
But the GOAT debate isn't as simple as the pundits make it seem. There are a number of factors relevant in determining the greatest basketball player of all time. In fact, I would say there are 5 things that really matter when determining the GOAT of any sport. These criteria are, in no particular order, accomplishments, longevity, winning, statistics, and what we'll refer to in this video as the eye test.
I do love the fact that this guy made this video and didn't just concentrate on a single thing. He did a holistic view of what does it mean to be the GOAT or the greatest of all time. It's just not just the scoring numbers. It's not just the how much time he played or how long he played. Or it's not how many titles you've won or how many times you've got to the finals. It's everything out of everything. And we'll get to, we'll get to know what's going on as the video kind of rolls in.
And to be the GOAT, you don't need to be the best in any specific category, but you need to be pretty good across the board. So simply winning 7 championships, like Robert Horry did, isn't enough to get you into the conversation.
And see, this is exactly what I say. It's not about how many championships you've been or how many championship winning teams you've been, like Robert Horry. Robert Horry did two championships with Houston. He did 3 championships with the Lakers and 2 championships with the San Antonio Spurs. Amazing luck. But he was always a support player. So he can't be in the conversation of the GOAT. He just can't. Even though he kind of won not really won the Lakers a title, but kind of did a winning shot that made sure they'll reach the finals.
When we're finished with this video, it'll be plainly obvious that one guy comes out on top. But before we get started, I want to clarify that this is not a comparison of legacies. It's about who was the better basketball player. If we were talking about legacies, Jordan's is nearly untouchable. Not only did he lead basketball to global popularity, he helped transform Nike into an empire, changed the way players played and how they dressed, and he even made it cool for guys to be bald. And while those things certainly contribute to MJ's iconic status, they don't make him a better player on the court.
That's just an
so let's
additive
evaluate
thing.
The criteria.
By the way, LeBron has his own stuff that he did for the sport of the basketball. He is an icon. If you take a Mount Rushmore of players, and have 5 instead of 4 because it's a basketball team, you'll get to see this guy's Mount Rushmore. I would put MJ, Kobe, LeBron, probably Larry Bird, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And yeah, Magic is not on the list.
That matter. And we'll start with individual accomplishments. Take a look. Jordan had more regular season MVPs, twice as many finals MVPs, 9 more scoring titles, and several more selections to the NBA's all-defensive team, including once being named Defensive Player of the Year. LeBron has more All-Star appearances, but that's largely due to his having played more seasons. In fact, when taking into account retirements and major injuries, Jordan essentially played 13 seasons compared to 17 seasons for LeBron, making Jordan's significant leading accomplishments all the more impressive. And that's to say nothing of MJ's brilliant college career, which saw him twice named All-American and once awarded College Player of the Year, at a time when the country's best players actually went to college. So regardless of whether you're a LeBron fan or MJ fan, you have to give the accomplishments checkmark to Jordan.
Yep.
The second criteria in our GOAT analysis is longevity. And this one is also a no-brainer, but this time in favor of LeBron. Not only has LeBron played more seasons in the league, but he's had a longer peak than Jordan. Jordan's peak lasted about 10 years, whereas LeBron's peak has lasted 16 years and is still going. And he's been incredibly durable during that time, missing significant time to injury only in 2019. That said, the claim that LeBron has been much more durable than Michael has been a bit overblown. Consider that Jordan played in at least 80 regular season games 11 times in his career, including all 82 games an incredible 9 times. Compare that to LeBron, who played in at least 80 regular season games just twice, and in all 82 games just once.
And he didn't have to fight the Detroit Pistons, which was the nastiest, dirtiest, craziest team of all time, with Lambeer, Thomas, Dumas, and Rodman. And as an aside, Sellers and Oakley.
So both LeBron and Jordan get high marks for their durability. But durability aside, the bottom line is that LeBron has sustained his level of excellence for a much longer period of time than Jordan, which puts the longevity checkmark squarely on LeBron's corner.
Yeah, for sure. I'll add to that. By this point in this particular video, LeBron wasn't the all-time leading scorer. Now, 4 years later, he's the all-time leading scorer in the NBA, surpassing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So longevity, completely LeBron by a long mile, by the way.
That brings us to the third GOAT criteria, winning. As we all know, Jordan won 6 championships. LeBron has won 3.
5.
Jordan is 6-0 in the NBA Finals. LeBron is 3-6.
Let me check. You know what? Let me check. Is it 5? I think it's 5. LeBron, NBA rings. 4. Okay, 4. So I did remember correctly. He's won just the one in 2020, the kind of the year this video came out, but it was probably the start of the year. So let's go.
LeBron has made the finals 9 times compared to only 6 times for Jordan, but let's not pretend that making the finals is the same thing, or even close to the same thing, as winning a title.
Exactly. There is a mile of a difference between winning a title and getting to the finals and losing a title. Just ask Stockton and Malone. And you can ask Malone 3 times.
Take a prime example from another sport, the Buffalo Bills. They're the only team in NFL history to appear in 4 consecutive Super Bowls. But is there a single player or fan of that team that wouldn't trade all 4 of those appearances for just 1 Super Bowl win?
I was on the winning side of all 4 of those Super Bowls. Every single time the Bills came up, it wasn't particularly my team, but every single time they lost.
Frankly, talk to any fan whose team lost the season's final game and ask them how they felt afterward. Almost universally, their feelings are of sadness, anger, and disappointment. And that's just the fans. For players, those feelings are only magnified. Listen to Charles Barkley talk about losing in the NBA Finals.
And I was just in shock when it was over because I was frustrated because I couldn't wheel my team past Michael and the Bulls. And first of all, I don't think I've ever gotten over it, number one. But that was traumatic, and it's painful.
So we can all...
Okay. This is where I have to stress something really, really important. I think Michael is the greatest player of all time. I hated Michael when he played, and I hated the Bulls because first of all, I was rooting for Stockton and Malone because Stockton was, when they were in the finals, Stockton was my favorite player from all of them. Because I'm a Shaquille fan. I literally, as soon as he went to the league, I was like, okay, I'm a Laker guy, but I will go with Shaq to the Magic. And when he was traded to the Lakers, I was so happy because it was back to because I grew up during the Magic and Bird era. I hated Bird, but he was a better player than Magic. I'm sorry. And I was a big Kareem guy. I was not a Magic guy. I was a Kareem guy in the Lakers. That's how I work. I love teams because there's a player in them that really captures me, and then I know everything about the team. Like I knew everything about the Orlando Magic for the 3 or 4 years that Shaquille was there. But even when he was traded, I was like, thank heavens it's for the Lakers. I hated Jordan when he played, but he was the best player when he played. Undeniably so.
Stop with this false equivalence between winning the championship and finishing runner-up. In the words of Herm Edwards,
you play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game.
Exactly.
Now back to Jordan and LeBron. As mentioned, on basketball's biggest stage, the NBA Finals, Jordan was 6-0. LeBron was 3-6. And frankly, that doesn't even show how lopsided their records really are. In terms of individual finals games, Jordan was 24-11. LeBron is 18-31. And that's because in 4 of his 6 finals losses, LeBron's team hasn't even been competitive. Twice he got swept, and 2 other times he lost 4-1. That includes being on the wrong side of the 2 most lopsided finals by margin of loss in NBA history. Of course, LeBron fans will tell you that the only reason for LeBron's poor finals record is that his competition was so tough. Ironically, some of these same fans criticized Jordan for losing early in his career to a Celtics team stacked with 5 Hall of Famers, and they conveniently gloss over the fact that LeBron reached the finals so many times in part because the competition in his own conference was so weak.
Yeah, this is a really, really important point. It's not just because the game was more physical or different rules and all that stuff. When Jordan was playing, the East was the hardest, toughest conference to win in the playoffs. I don't mean the regular season. I mean in the playoffs. Because in the West, you had the Lakers and maybe the Houston Rockets. Maybe. In the East, you've got the 76ers, the Boston Celtics, the Detroit Pistons, the New York Knicks, and the Bulls. That is tremendously tough.
During the vast majority of his career, LeBron played in what many dubbed the Leastern Conference because the East was so much weaker than the West.
Yep.
On the other hand, during Jordan's playing days, the East was generally considered the stronger
And
conference,
the Pacers.
as Jordan had to battle through hard-fought rivalries against the Bad Boy Pistons, Patrick Ewing's Knicks, the Shaq Penny-led Magic, and Reggie Miller's Pacers. That said, if you want...
Yeah, that was like the late 80s. I talked about to get to the finals, or Jordan underwent a whole series of walking into fire. This is insane. He had to go through Bird. And when the Boston Celtics kind of waned through, there was the Pistons. And it took a couple of years. And then he took over the Pistons. But when he got there, he had to face the Lakers in 1991.
Want to blame LeBron's failure in the finals on the level of his competition, I won't argue with you. But let's also not blow it out of proportion. If you look at the average number of wins of their finals opponents, you'll see that LeBron's finals opponents average 60.8 wins per season, whereas Jordan's finals opponents average 61.2 wins per season. As it turns out, both players face stiff competition in the finals. But a big reason we don't hold the 93 Suns, the 96 Sonics, or the 98 Jazz in the same regard as some of LeBron's finals opponents is because, unlike LeBron's adversaries, Jordan's opponents never actually won the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Which goes to my original point, that the difference between winning the title and finishing runner-up is huge. And the reason those teams never won the title? This guy.
See, that's the most interesting part. So LeBron had to face teams that have won titles, which is tough. Not gonna lie, that's tough. And Jordan did not. But Jordan was the reason these teams did not win a title. Barkley was the MVP of the 1992-1993 season. They had a phenomenal season. He was scoring almost as much as Jordan that season. And he carried that Suns team until Jordan.
Look, I'm not trying to say that Jordan's opponents were as good as the Warriors teams that LeBron faced 4 times in the finals.
They were not.
The truth is that Jordan never played a juggernaut quite like that. But there's a pretty good reason for that. Jordan's Bulls were the juggernaut. They were the team winning 70-plus games. They were the team with the target on their back every year. And as the Warriors showed us, that's not an easy place to be. As great as the Warriors were, they were never...
See, you see the difference? So Jordan did not face as good of an opponent as James, right? That's because they were that team. They were the big ones. But even the big ones fail from time to time. Not Jordan.
able to string together 3 consecutive championships. Jordan's Bulls did it twice. So what's the greater achievement? Beating the juggernaut or being the juggernaut? Or to be...
I'll ask the chat, which is tougher? Consistently, year after year, winning, recapturing, still keeping the throne, being that guy, or being the challenger?
Be more specific, beating the juggernaut 1 time out of the 4 times you faced them, or being the juggernaut year after year after year, and then doing it again year after year after year. There's no doubt that LeBron's victory over the 73-win Warriors was the highlight of his career. But it's not the first time that an underdog has won the championship, and there actually have been much bigger underdogs who ended up winning the title. But how many times have we seen a player...
Yeah, the 2004, I think, Pistons were a ragtag team. They were not as dirty as the 89-90 Pistons, but they beat not only the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, they beat the Lakers with Kobe, Shaq, Malone, and was it Gary Payton on that team too?
Player lead his team to 6 championships in 8 years. Prior to Jordan's Bulls, only Bill Russell's Celtics ever accomplished that feat in the NBA, when they incredibly won 11 championships in 13 seasons.
Yeah, that
However,
was
back then,
unfair.
there was an average of less than 10 teams in the league, and only a couple rounds of playoffs, so it was considerably easier to win a title. And no player, not even Bill Russell, ever had a run of winning 25 of 26 playoff series, as Michael Jordan did. And Michael's pattern of winning goes beyond the NBA. Let's not forget that Jordan has never won anything but gold in the Olympics, and he also...
Like I said, because this is a 4-year-old video, it does not count the second gold medal that LeBron won. And I think in that last run in the Olympics, he was actually the best guy on that team. That included not Kyrie Irving, Stephon Curry. Oh, man, I hate that man.
Earned an NCAA
not Robert
championship,
Horry. Yeah,
in which
Robert
he hit the
Horry
first
was
of
not
2
on that
iconic
team.
championship-winning
Not the
shots in his career.
2004 one.
All that is to say, when it comes to winning, the checkmark clearly goes to Jordan.
Yeah, for sure.
On to the 4th GOAT criteria, statistics. This one is a bit more complicated. I mean, how do you statistically evaluate 2 players who played in different eras under different rules at different positions? One way of doing it is to simply look at the 8 traditional statistics of basketball. Points, assists, rebounds.
Just as an aside, Sander Hammerschlag in the chat, if you have a specific video you want me to watch, please send it to me somewhere. Just not, you can't really comment on this stream because it will go private after this, but I'm open to have anything about soccer, football, it's called football, but anything about anything. I'm good. I'm really good. Use any of my videos and just comment on them, or either on the live shows. Use the comment section anywhere on this channel and just link me to videos and I will put them in the rotation. I don't mind. It could be on any subject. The only thing that I can't really watch is nudity or anything to do with like extreme violence. Otherwise, I would have taken a lot of videos from Twitter. a lot.
Rebounds, steals, blocks, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and turnovers. And we'll focus on per game stats rather than cumulative stats, since cumulative stats such as total career points and total career assists really speak to longevity, which is already its own category of the GOAT analysis.
Exactly.
Per game stats, on the other hand, is more of an apples to apples comparison. So looking at the 8 traditional stats, we see that Jordan leads LeBron in 5 of them: points per game, steals per game, blocks per game, free throw percentage, and fewer turnovers. LeBron leads in the other 3: assists per game, rebounds per game, and field goal percentage. But that's a pretty simplistic way of looking at statistics. What if we instead turn to analytics? Probably the most well-known analytic stat is player efficiency rating, or PER for short. This metric was created by respected basketball analyst John Hollinger to give an overall rating to a player's performance based on traditional stats like the ones we just mentioned. Jordan has led the league in PER 7 times, LeBron 6 times. Jordan has finished top 3 in PER 10 times, LeBron 9 times. In fact, Jordan has the highest career PER in both the regular season and the playoffs. Another popular analytic stat is win shares. Jordan has led the league in win shares 8 times, LeBron 5 times. Jordan has finished top 3 in win shares 11 times, LeBron 6 times. And when it comes to win shares per 48 minutes, Jordan has the highest career rating in both the regular season and the playoffs. What about box plus minus? Until recently,
I don't know what box plus minus is, and I don't really know what win shares are. I know PER, but it's sort of it's one of those metrics that people who like gamble on individual basketball players do. They really look at those stats and do their calculations. I just think it's fun numbers. That's it.
LeBron was actually ahead of Jordan in career box plus minus. But after the 2017 season gave Russell Westbrook the greatest single-season box plus minus in history by a wide margin, the architect of box plus minus realized that the stat was fundamentally flawed. So he made some changes to improve its formula. As a result, Michael Jordan now has the highest career box plus minus in both the regular season and the playoffs.
Holy shit.
And lastly, what about value over replacement player, which on its face seems to favor LeBron James? Well, value over replacement player is a cumulative stat, and as previously noted, cumulative stats speak more to longevity than they do game-to-game dominance. That said, according to value over replacement player, Jordan owns 6 of the 9 greatest individual seasons ever played. And on a per-game basis, MJ's career rating in value over replacement player is the highest of all time in both the regular season and the playoffs. Are you noticing a theme here? Not only does Jordan beat LeBron in every ratable analytic stat, he consistently ranks as the best ever across the board. Before we move on from analytics, I want to mention a lesser-known stat called game score, another brainchild of John Hollinger. Game score measures a player's performance in a single game, so it won't tell us who's had the better career, but it does provide insight into who's had the greatest games. Now, we only have game score stats since 1983, so you won't see any mentions of Wilt Chamberlain here. That said, of the 100 highest game scores ever recorded, incredibly 19 of them belong to Michael Jordan. In other words, nearly 1 out of every...
That is one of the most amazing stats I have ever heard. Because, like I said, I have seen this video at least a couple of times. But you know me and my Swiss cheese brain. And if you don't, I have a Swiss cheese brain. I sometimes watch the same video 7 times. And if it has like lots of information in it, which I enjoy, I really enjoy that information, I sometimes forget. And then I rewatch the video and it's like, oh, that's right. That's what I remember. That's why I liked about this video, or this is what I liked about this particular thing. 19 of the 100 highest scores goes to the one guy. The one guy.
5 of the best single game performances over the last 4 decades has been by MJ. That includes the highest game score of all time for Jordan's 69.18 rebound masterpiece. Comparatively, LeBron has had only 3 of the top 100 game scores. When discussing the GOAT, Nick Wright is fond of asking this question.
If the aliens come down, you have one game to save humanity. Who's your first pick in the history of the world?
Well, Nick,
Jordan.
I think we have our answer. Now that I've finished drowning you in numbers, let's be real. Hardly anyone watching this video knows how to calculate PER, win shares, box plus minus, value over replacement player, or game score. And why should you? This is basketball, not Good Will Hunting. So let's go back to the traditional stats that we all know and understand. But this time, let's add context to them. What do I mean by context? Well, some positions are simply better than others at racking up certain stats.
Now, he's going to go into this, but this is one of the most important thing in the world. You really cannot compare eras But most importantly, because of of changes, remember some of these players, including LeBron, were the reason why rules have been changed. Kobe has been changing rules, Jordan changed rules, Bird changed rules, Magic changed rules. Even the Pistons changed rules, certain rules in NBA to accommodate the game because of the one player, okay? So that's not really fair. But more importantly is it's really hard to compare a shooting guard to a small forward, which is this particular point, and he's going to make it for me right now.
Let's take rebounding as an example. In a vacuum, if we simply compare the number of rebounds per game of Brook Lopez and Jason Kidd, we might think that Lopez was the better rebounder. The truth is, relative to their positions, Lopez is statistically one of the worst rebounding centers in NBA history, whereas Kidd is statistically one of the best rebounding guards in NBA history. But even a poor rebounding center can grab more rebounds than a great rebounding guard solely by virtue of their roles on the court. So it makes sense that, to understand the context of a player's stats, we should compare them to the respective positions that they played.
Exactly.
When comparing LeBron James to the other small forwards who have played at least 500 NBA games, this is where he ranks. Overall, that's pretty impressive.
It's
Now
very
let's see how
respectable.
Jordan compares to all shooting guards who have played at least 500 NBA games. As good as LeBron is compared to other small forwards, Jordan is on another level when compared to other shooting guards. He's darn near the top.
This is one-to-one comparison to the position in which he played in. Just look at the numbers.
Top of every major statistical category, and there isn't a single category where LeBron is better than MJ relative to his position, other than assists. So to sum up statistics,
And there's a reason why assists are like Jordan's number one. And you know why? Because he was a ball hogger. For the better part of his first 6 years, he was a mega ball hoarder. And then Phil Jackson in the triangle.
whether comparing traditional stats or analytics, and especially when judging these players in the context of the positions they played, Jordan has a noticeable edge over LeBron. As such, we have to give the checkmark to Jordan. And that takes us to the last category in our GOAT analysis, the eye test. And to be clear, by eye test, I don't mean which of these players is bigger, faster, or jumps higher.
By the way, up until now, it sort of seems like it's leaning towards Jordan. So it might change a little bit. However, if we put stats aside, longevity, how many titles anybody won, and all that stuff, I think the eye test is the most important thing. Because as the man from that question before said, if the aliens come down from Earth, you have one player from all time to put in front of the aliens and say, this is our best player. Let's go. Who would you pick?
None of that is relevant unless we're having a track and field competition. And frankly, if physical measurables mattered, then Jordan Murasan would be in the GOAT conversation. No, what I mean by the eye test is, if you sat an average basketball fan in front of a TV to watch a player in action, what would he notice that the player is and is not great at? Thankfully, I happen to be an average basketball fan, and I've had the privilege of watching both LeBron and Jordan during their playing days. So unlike a lot of my fellow YouTubers, I haven't merely relied on highlight videos. Here's what my eyes told me when I saw Michael Jordan play, particularly during his playing days with the Chicago Bulls. He was the best offensive player in the game. He was arguably the best defensive player in the game. He had the best mid-range game.
It wasn't the best, but he was pretty freaking good.
He was the best finisher at the rim. He had the best post-up game, which is incredible considering most players who dominated the post were big men. He was widely considered the most clutch player in the game. He was regarded by opponents as the fiercest competitor on the court. He was regarded by teammates as the hardest worker in practice. And when all was said and done, amongst the other stars of his generation, he was the greatest winner. Now, when you're playing against the elite of the elite athletes of the world, to be the best at any one of those things is pretty remarkable. But to be the best at all of them? I tell you, it's impossible, but for the fact that we saw Michael Jordan do it. And when it comes to the GOAT debate, that's the biggest hurdle facing LeBron.
Yep.
He's basically being compared to a guy who was great at everything and practically had no weaknesses.
He wasn't great at everything, but he was really, really good at a lot of things. And he was great in scoring.
Seriously, judging by the eye test, what's the worst thing we could say about Michael Jordan's game? Probably that he wasn't a very good three-point shooter.
And
Jordan
he was
shot
a ball
33%
hogger.
from beyond the arc in an era when the average player also shot 33%. So when it came to three-point shooting, He wasn't good, he wasn't bad, he was just average. But remember that Michael played in an age when the three-point shot wasn't a big part of the game. During Jordan's years, teams averaged only 9.5 three-point attempts per game, and Michael himself attempted less than 2 threes per game.
Compared to the game of today, where when I see highlights, it's literally dunks or three-pointers from, like, it's not half court, but it's like Caitlin Clark level of shooting. It's insane. You don't even have to mount a defense. You have guys like Curry just flying, Curry and Thompson and KD and all those guys, and probably players I don't know the names of because I don't really follow NBA. These guys are shooting insane amount of threes, and they're pretty good at it. And they don't have to do average. They just have to shoot at 33 to 35% out of the arc. And you get scores like 142 to 135 at a regular basketball game. What the hell is going on?
And if being an average three-point shooter is a weakness of Michael's game, well, then we also have to call it a weakness of LeBron's game. The difference is that LeBron plays in an era where the three-point shot is a huge part of the game. During the years in which LeBron played, teams attempted on average over 21 threes per game. And LeBron
9 attempts versus 20.
himself averaged 4.3 three-point attempts per game, or 2.5 times as many as Jordan. Despite the increased emphasis on threes, LeBron's career shooting percentage from beyond the arc is only a hair better than Jordan, at 34%. And it's actually slightly below his peers, who averaged 35% from three during his era. But to reiterate, being an
I was so correct about that 35%. I didn't even remember that stat at all.
an average three-point shooter was by far the worst part of MJ's game. For LeBron, it's not even close. LeBron, in fact, has 4 major weaknesses as a basketball player, each of which is readily apparent to anyone who has actually watched him play. First, he's not a good free throw shooter.
Nope.
For his career, LeBron has shot around 73.5% from the free throw line, which is pretty poor for a player who handles the ball as much as he does. In fact, many analysts point out that at the end of games, LeBron shies away from driving to the basket because he's afraid of being sent to the line.
I don't know if that's correct. By the way, the score is 142 to 141. Holy hell. In overtime, but okay, it is what it is. Remember a guy called Shaq who only did 50% from the line, and the other teams had a way of stopping Shaq at the end of the game where it was just to hack a Shaq. And at some point, Shaq came to David Stern, the commissioner back then. He was like, dude, these guys are killing me out there. And Stern gave him the equivalent of, what do you want from me? Deal with it. He just said, wah, wah, wah. You're a big guy. You can take it.
I don't know whether that's true, but what I do know is that the odds of LeBron hitting 2 consecutive free throws is statistically not much better than a coin flip. Jordan, on the other hand...
No. 70% is not more than a coin flip. It's still 73%. It's just... I know he's making a point, but 73% is not a coin flip. Is not terrible.
And shot a solid 83.5% from the free throw line during his career. And MJ never shied away from contact at the end of games. LeBron's second weakness is that he's an inconsistent defender. Sure, he's had some years where he was elite defensively, which is evidenced by his numerous selections to the NBA's all-defensive team, but he's also had several years where he's practically been a liability on the defensive end. Compare that to MJ, who during his Bulls days was a consistently elite defender. In fact, Jordan is the only player to rank in the top 5 amongst all guards in both steals per game and blocks per game for his...
The issue with Jordan is his first 5 years, one of the major complaints that he got was, except for being a ball hogger and throwing way too many shots, same thing that Kobe had later on in his career, is the fact that he was so competitive. Every season, they told him, look, you're not doing this enough. He was like, oh, really? And it was like, oh, I'm going to be the steals like leader of that year, just to make sure he's that. Same goes with blocks. Same goes with assists. When he wanted to do those things and make sure nobody talks shit, he did those things.
His career. Additionally, Michael led his position in defensive win shares practically every year that he played for the Bulls, an incredible 10 times.
It's not practically. In the first few years, he was criticized about that. And then he went into the offseason and he improved and improved and improved.
LeBron, comparatively, has led his position in defensive win shares on just 4 occasions, and in 5 of his last 7 seasons, he didn't even crack the top 10 at his position in defensive win shares. Now, some will excuse LeBron's recent falloff on the defensive end as a byproduct of his resting on defense so that he can have more energy on offense. And we can debate the merits of that strategy, but resting on defense is not something Michael Jordan was ever accused of doing. Heck, even as a 40-year-old, he was busting his tail on the defensive end. But what about the notion that LeBron's been the more versatile defender? LeBron supporters will argue that he can guard positions 1 through 5 on the court, such as when he guarded Derrick Rose for stretches in the 2011 playoffs. But LeBron's guarding the opposing team's point guard or center isn't something that happens very often. In fact, during his career, LeBron has spent less than 5% of his total minutes guarding the opposing players 1 or 5. So the versatility argument is highly exaggerated. And look, when it comes to versatility, Hometown Buffet may have a more versatile menu than Spago. That doesn't make it a better restaurant.
Correct.
LeBron's third weakness is that he's not a very good shooter. And this is a pretty significant flaw for someone claiming to be the GOAT. I mean, shooting the ball is the quintessential skill in the game of basketball. It's the part of the game that everyone practices, whether on the playground, at the YMCA,
That's how
or
the
in
video
NBA.
goes. It's not
now,
me
some
doing
people
this.
will contend that LeBron is actually a better shooter than Jordan because he has a better career field goal percentage. And yes, LeBron's career field goal percentage is 50.4% compared to Jordan's 49.7%. But recall what I said about placing stats into proper context. To help us understand context when it comes to shooting, allow me to introduce DeAndre Jordan and Tyson Chandler. We all know that DeAndre and Tyson were great rebounders and defenders, but what if I told you that they were also 2 of the greatest shooters of all time? That would be certifiably crazy.
Yep.
Yet if you look at all the shooting metrics, field goal percentage, effective field goal percentage, true shooting percentage, both of these guys rank near the top in NBA history. Of course, there's an obvious reason for that. As we
They're
all know,
closer
both
to
DeAndre
the
Jordan and Tyson
basket.
Chandler take a lot of their shot attempts on dunks, layups, and putbacks, which are extremely high percentage shots. Well, guess what? So does LeBron James. In fact, every single year of his career, the shot that LeBron James has taken the most has been within 0 to 3 feet from the basket. In other words, dunks, layups, and putbacks. More than 1 of every 3 of LeBron's shots has been within this point-blank range,
Which also
is
increases
aided by
his
playing in
rebound
an era where it's been
percentage, but
relatively
okay.
easy to get to the rim, particularly when compared to the physical era in which Jordan played. And just like every other player, LeBron
That's also unfair towards LeBron. Jordan went to do dunks a lot of the times. A lot. The issue is Jordan also had a great post-up game, which he developed. It wasn't there at the beginning. He was a much purer shooter when it comes to his earlier career, and then it got developed. And the fact that they were playing the triangle offense with Jackson allowed him to be in open spaces or in a space where his defender isn't close enough or isn't fast enough to catch him when he grabs the ball and just gives you like a 6-footer shot.
LeBron is really effective from 0 to 3 feet, hitting over 73% of these shots. But how does LeBron fare from outside this range? According to basketballreference.com, LeBron's shooting percentage from outside 3 feet is 37.5%. It's even poorer in the playoffs where he shoots 35.9%. And it gets even worse in close and late situations. In the last 2 minutes of games where the score is within 5 points, LeBron hits only 31.7% of his jumpers.
No, the eye test isn't who's hotter. The eye test is if you just look at the player playing, who is better, basically. But also, it also involves stats, which means these kind of things, where you put the player in its proper context, meaning where he shot his shot, what position does he play, how does that affect his game? If he's playing closer to the rim, then he's got a better field goal percentage, and he explains this is why. If he's farther away, then where's his field goal percentage?
Look, it doesn't take a
where
rocket scientist to know that these numbers aren't very good, which is probably why in the 2013 finals, the Spurs' defensive strategy against the Heat was to basically dare LeBron James to shoot. And keep in mind, this was against LeBron in his prime. Can you imagine an opposing coach using a similar strategy against MJ? Now, LeBron actually credits the Spurs for forcing him to work on his jump shot, but it's not as if his results have gotten much better since then. Here's LeBron's shooting percentage from outside 3 feet over the last 6 years. Yikes. Well, I'll give him this, he is consistent. For comparison, consider that in the last year of Michael Jordan's career, as an aging player on the Washington Wizards, Jordan shot close to 42% from outside 3 feet. While that's certainly not great, it means that even as a 40-year-old shell of his former self, Jordan was still a better shooter, a far better shooter than LeBron James.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Basketball Reference doesn't have advanced shooting metrics from Michael's Bulls days when he was a significantly more efficient scorer, but few would argue that Michael was anything but a lethal jump shooter when he was wearing red and black. When it comes to shooting, all of us can recall practicing shots on the blacktop, counting down 3, 2, 1 before launching a shot at the rim. Well, if you were pretending to be LeBron James, you'd brick almost 2/3 of the time.
This is the definitive way of differentiating Jordan and LeBron. What's going on at the clutch moments of the game?
Actually, that's not entirely true. If you were playing against a countdown, it would be much, much worse. And that gets me to the last major weakness of LeBron's game, his performance, or more accurately, lack of performance, in the clutch. Remember when people were praising LeBron for making a couple of buzzer beaters in the playoffs 2 years ago? They used these stats to claim that LeBron was better in the clutch than Jordan.
Like I said, I don't remember every single part of this video. This is something I don't remember. So LeBron has 7 out of 15 in terms of buzzer beaters, which means fourth quarter or overtime, 5 seconds to go, he takes the shot. 7 out of 15 with 47%, which means better than Jordan. And he has 5 buzzer beaters as opposed to Jordan's 3 buzzer beaters. And this is NBA postseason.
But look at these numbers carefully. What stands out to you? How about this? People were using a sample size of less than 1 shot per season to make the case that LeBron was more clutch than Jordan. That would be the equivalent of polling just 100 people in the country to try to predict the winner of the next presidential election. So let's use more telling stats, shall we? Here's a situation that's often used to determine a player's clutchness. 5 seconds to go in the fourth quarter or overtime, and your team needs a bucket to either win or tie the game. It answers the age-old question, who do you want taking the last shot with the game on the line? It turns out that in the regular season and playoffs combined, LeBron has taken 94 such shots. That's a pretty good sample size. And how many of those 94 shots has LeBron made? 19, for a shooting percentage of 20%. Let me repeat that. 20%.
Okay, that changes a lot. Okay. 20%, your player, your major star player, in almost 100 shots, got 20%.
Guys, that's not bad in the clutch. That's atrocious. Michael Jordan in the same situation shot roughly 50%. Yes, that's right. Jordan's performance under pressure was the same as it was throughout the rest of the game. And that, my friends, is the definition of clutch.
And I'll explain why is it the definition of clutch. If you're shooting at roughly 50% of your shots, every single shot is about 50%. So if you're closer to the basket, it's about 60. If you're outside of the rim, like Jordan has, about 33% shooting from 3-point shots, not too bad. But it hasn't taken much of these shots. So when he's closer to the rim, most likely if you're shooting 33%, but if you're shooting overall 50, you're much closer to about 60% when you're inside the arc. Just regular statistics here, right? Regular, like averages, not even statistics, averages. So if you are shooting for the game at around the same percentage that you shoot throughout the game, it means that the amount of time left does not affect your shot, which means you are a cool, calm customer. That's what it means to be a clutch player.
So there you go. When it comes to the eye test, our eyes tell us that one player, Michael Jordan, is great at everything and has practically no weaknesses. And the other player, LeBron James, while also having a ton of strengths, has several obvious flaws to his game. And when all is said and done, after analyzing the 5 key factors of being the GOAT, Jordan gets 4 check marks to LeBron's 1, making this GOAT debate, well, not much of a debate at all. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that LeBron James is a bad player. He's a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
Personally, I have him on basketball's Mount Rushmore, along with...
Me too. Me too. Now, like I said, NBA Mount Rushmore has to be 5 because there's 5 players on the team, and you might even say you cannot put like more than 2 shooting guards on there. But I'm pretty leeway. If your 5 guys are not a consistent team, I'm fine with it. You can have 5 centers in there if you like, but you have to have Jordan. And you probably have to have LeBron James on your list. Even though I don't like LeBron at all as a person. And I'm pretty low on Michael as a person too. You can't, you know.
With Jordan, Kareem, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bill Russell.
See, Kareem, Wilt, and Bill, phenomenal players of all time. You cannot deny it. But I never put Wilt or Bill Russell on my list because it's not the fact that they played at a different era. It's the fact that from about 75 up to today, it's a completely different game. Not to mention, I think the 3-point shot was implemented, 81, 82? I really don't remember. It's a whole other ball game when you have the 3-point shot. It's a completely different type of game when you have the 3-point shot. So those are 2 of the top 50 of all time, top 75 of all time. I don't know where they got on the list. But personally, for me, they're not on the Mount Rushmore, no.
He's just not Michael Jordan. And just to underscore how good MJ was, let's ignore LeBron and Jordan for a minute and focus on the other 3 players highlighted here, Kareem, Wilt, and Bill Russell. Most would agree that these are the 3 greatest centers in NBA history, and each of them has a strong case to justify his standing among basketball royalty. Wilt is an all-time great because he was an offensive force of nature, and he holds a ton of NBA records. Russell is in the conversation because he was a dominant defender and a perennial champion. Kareem also led his team to numerous titles, and in terms of individual awards and accolades, was the most decorated of the 3.
Yep.
Not to mention, he had the NBA's most...
It's not the most decorated. I mean, Bill Russell has more NBA championships, but okay.
Unguardable shot. Now imagine
The
a center that
unguardable
had
shot
all the
is
best qualities
insane.
from these 3 titans. A player like that would be the basketball equivalent of Thanos. Now add to that player the highest level of intangible attributes, such as a tireless work ethic, unmatched killer instinct, and an ability to deliver in the clutch. And now you'd essentially be looking at Thanos with all of the Infinity Stones.
Correct.
And no one would question whether this player was the greatest of all time. But the truth is, we don't have to imagine such a player.
There
That
is
player
such a
already
player.
existed. He just happened to be a shooting guard, not a center.
Exactly.
When you think about it, Michael Jordan is the real-life version of an overpowered video game character. He had all the qualities we look for in a superstar athlete, and he had it in spades. He's basically Babe Ruth, if Babe Ruth played defense like Willie Mays. And that's why, even in comparison to the other all-time greats, he is truly in a class of his own.
See who was added on that list? Kobe, Bird, and Magic. See how many Lakers players on there? God damn, I used to love the Lakers. I cannot stand the fact that LeBron was a Laker for 4 years. Oh, my God.
Simply put, he's the GOAT.
Yeah, that's just a highlight. I do have a highlights video for Jordan, but I will save it for another day because we're almost done and it's a 10-minute video. No, it's a 15-minute video. Holy shit. 79 for the NBA for the 3-point arc. Yep, he's the GOAT.
Thanks for watching. This was my first video, but if you want me to make more content like this, please subscribe to my channel.
Oh,
Also, if
please
you like
do.
what you saw,
I'm gonna
please
have,
click the like button below and share this video with your friends. And leave a comment to give your thoughts on the GOAT debate.
Scrolling through the trash, can't believe my eyes. Worthless vids, man, no surprise. Stupid thumbnails, faces all deranged. Looking for gold, all I find is strange.